Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Hashing Out the Law. This is season 3. I'm your host, Arash Hashemi. On today's episode, my guest is my longtime friend and colleague, William Hovsepyan. William started at the Public Defender's Office, and now he's with the Alternate Public Defender's Office. Good morning, William. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Actually, good afternoon. William, I'm excited to have you on because you've been working with the Public Defender's Office and the Alternate Public Defender's Office for some years now. So you're one of the seasoned vets, for lack of a better term. So I wanted to have you on to talk about the two organizations and your line of work. We had a public defender on before on one of our episodes. And she talked about what it's like to be a public defender. But I wanted to have you explain to the listeners and the viewers, how does one become a public defender? Obviously, you have to go to law school, pass the bar. But once you've done that and you want to work for the public defender's office, what steps do you need to take?
Well, I just want to first say thanks for having me on. It's just like any other job. You go online nowadays. I think now they have the applications on governmentjobs.com, but you can also go to the LA County HR website and try to find the application there too. Actually, I was just doing a search just to see if it's there. So yeah, you could go to the LA County HR website and you can get the application. You fill it out, you turn it in. I believe they ask for resume and cover letter too. I applied with the Public Defender's Office back in 2005. And it was through the recommendation of a friend. I was working, as you remember, with the California Parole Advocacy Program. That was my first real law job, and I wanted to, expand in doing trials and other things. And so he advised that I apply. So I did. I received a call back. There's an interview process that you go through. The first interview is usually with what we call a head deputy, which is like a supervisor or a branch supervisor, and sometimes a division chief, which is somebody hired, and a head deputy. And so you interview with these two individuals, and depending on how well you do, and if they like you, then you come back for a second interview, and this time you interview with the public defender. And at the time when I applied, it was Mike Judge. Usually they say once you get to that point, you're basically hired, but I know sometimes even people who get to that point, sometimes they don't get hired just because the person interviewing them doesn't like them or doesn't like something about them. I don't know. And then that's it. You get hired. You go through a training process. The Public Defender's Office here in LA County has a very good training process. I'm not, I can't talk for other public defender's offices in either, California or other states, but I know the LA County Public Defender's Office has a very long, extensive training process. Everybody starts in the preliminary hearing stage of the training. We called it the prelim pool. And we have trainers who assist the new hires. Obviously, there's a training process even before you start doing the preliminary hearings, but throughout the whole process, and it depends how long it goes. I think it's about 2 months, depending on how many people have been hired, because they get, the hiring happens, we call it a class. So they get a whole bunch of people at the same time, and then the training process begins for everyone.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off, but so you get hired and you do your basic training, and then you go basic training like in the military. But once you go to the preliminary pool, as you called it, you're not doing prelims right away, are you? You have somebody else there and they're assisting you, or do they just throw you in the fire?
You just kind of get thrown in there, but with a little bit of assistance. And nobody's getting murder prelims or the heavier life cases. It's usually lighter felonies, like not residential burglaries, burglaries, 10851s, back in our days, we also had the possession cases, but we don't have those anymore because of Prop 47. But there are still sales cases and things like that that people still get. So it's the lighter prelims that you get. I remember my first prelim, just I was a nervous wreck, walking into, and it was in Department 37, in criminal courts building downtown, and Department 37 and 38 are two of the bigger courtrooms on that floor, and it was packed with people in the audience, including other lawyers and cops and whatever. So I know I was a nervous wreck when I walked into that first one, but as you do it, you have a trainer with you watching, giving you feedback. And there's constant training going on. There's always training on how to cross-examine police officers, how to cross-examine witnesses, how to cross-examine civilians. We had weekly trainings just on all kinds of areas of preliminary hearings and more. But you do the preliminary hearings, and then when the trainers feel comfortable that it's you can move on to the next stage. The next stage is misdemeanors, and now they have misdemeanor arraignments and pre-trials and trials all at the same time, because we don't have Bochet anymore for arraignments. So arraignments are done in Department 40 at the criminal courts building. And by the way, everyone that goes through training is at CCB, going through their training at the downtown criminal courthouse.
So they start
So
at CCB.
everybody's there.
Everybody starts at CCB.
Yeah, everybody starts at CCB. They go through their, I want to say 9 months of training at CCB, and then the rest of the time is at Metro, where the DUI training is done. But the first preliminary hearings and misdemeanors are done at CCB. During my time, we had a bigger class, so people sometimes we get sent out for a short period of time to a branch to do preliminary hearings. But then, we would all return back to downtown to continue with the misdemeanors. But again, with the misdemeanors, it's, arraignments, pre-trials and trials are kind of all mixed in together at this point. So people come in, they're assigned to courts on the 7th floor, misdemeanor courts, and then they also do arraignments. And we also had trainers when we were in misdemeanor training. We had people. We also have experienced attorneys with us during misdemeanors. They're assigned to the misdemeanor courts, and when I say experienced, it's anywhere from 5 years to whatever. It just depends on who's available and who wants to come there and kind of assist in the training. And they're in the courtroom with the attorneys, kind of embedded with them, showing them the day-to-day activities in the courtroom. When you get a probation violation pickup, how do you deal with that? You get a new case, because sometimes we would get new cases in the courtrooms and not just in in the pretrial courtrooms and not Department 40. And so it was kind of like a pickup in there, or a bench warrant pickup if somebody was there and they come back on a bench warrant pickup. So the more experienced person is sitting there and kind of showing them how to go through the process.
Now, William, I have a question for you. So let's talk about your specific experience. From the day you got hired, how long before you had your first jury trial on your own?
Ooh, going back 15, 16 years. I know I went through prelims. It took about two and a half months or so to get past prelims, and then we were in arraignments. So I would say maybe 3-4 months before I had a misdemeanor trial.
Okay, but during those 3-4 months, you're doing all these prelims. You have other attorneys that are guiding you and coaching you. When you do your first jury trial, are you all on your own, or do you have an attorney also helping you out, guiding you?
No, you're basically at that point on your own. you have a caseload that you are handling. And I mean, it's just like any other situation. If a case calls for it to go to trial because of whatever reason, whether the offers from the prosecution, the client doesn't want it, or they don't want to accept his offer, or whatever the reason, ends up in trial, and you're on your own, in a sense that you're doing it by yourself. But there's all this support back there, in the office. You go to your trainer. We had two misdemeanor trainers. We had the training coordinator. We had an assistant training coordinator. There was also the head deputy in training. So there were all these individuals that you could go to if you had a question about, how to do the trial, how to proceed, and all of that stuff. But we get enough training where you get to a point where you're like, okay, I feel comfortable enough to do the trial. But if you need the assistance, somebody's always there for you. And the trainers, come and watch you in trial, so they can give you feedback about your performance and what you can improve on and things like that.
Okay. Let me ask you this. We know that during your first prelim, you were a nervous wreck. What was your first trial like, your first jury trial?
I was nervous during the first trial too. Unfortunately for me, the city attorney decided that he wanted to call an expert to testify, and I, hadn't had an opportunity to cross-examine an expert, and it was kind of like a last minute, the afternoon before I was notified that this expert was going to testify. I requested a short continuance to prepare for that, and the judge denied that short continuance. So I kind of was forced into going this trial with the expert. I mean, during preliminary hearings, you cross-examine police officers who sometimes testify as experts, but this was a domestic violence case, and they called in a domestic violence expert, and I had to hurry up and find information regarding this specific expert. And fortunately, the public defender's office has such a large amount of pool of resources where you can send out an email, or even go to there's a website that's specifically for the public defender's office, where they have all these materials. You can go in there and find anything you need. But you can also send out an email and say, hey, I'm in trial, which happened to me several times in my career as a public defender. An issue comes up. I don't have, as you know, it's the practice of law. We don't know everything that's out there about the law. Sometimes something comes up you haven't had the experience dealing with. So you shoot an email, you get a response there, and usually it's pretty quick. And so fortunately for me, I was able to get a transcript where she testified, and went through the transcript and prepared myself. But I was still nervous, talking in front of a jury. And you have a client you're representing who could potentially, if they're found guilty, they're potentially looking at time in custody. So I wasn't as nervous as I was at the preliminary hearing, because it was just my first time in a courtroom, in an actual courtroom,
Setting.
speaking and asking questions and all of that stuff.
So I have another question for you. You said that you get a caseload. What is the typical caseload for a public defender?
So I don't know what it is now, but I know when I was on the row, we call it misdemeanor row, I had about 80 misdemeanor open cases. If I remember correctly. I mean, it's been 15 years, but I think we had 80 open cases. And then you obviously have the post-conviction matters that you handle, but that's, a typical caseload. And I after I was done with my training, I went to my first branch assignment, and I had approximately, I think, 100 open misdemeanor cases. So
What branch were you at?
Lancaster.
Oh yeah, you were at Lancaster for a long time.
Yeah, with the PD's office, I was there for 7.5 years. I did misdemeanors there, felonies there, and juvenile there. And then when I transferred over to the alternate public defender's office, I went back there again for a couple of more years. So I'm very familiar with AV.
Right. Yeah. That's I I have an opinion that I think AV and Pomona are LA County, but they're completely different than LA County. They're technically LA County courts, but
Yeah.
that's a whole different story that we can get into. Let's go back to your experience as a public defender. So you're a public defender. You're now on your own. You've been transferred to Lancaster, and you got 100 open cases. What is the daily uh, grind for a public defender like?
Okay. Well, before I get to that, let me just finish with the training process, because I
Yeah,
think it's important for people to know, because, I think a lot of people out there just have this assumption that, public defenders don't know what they're doing, and they just kind of, flailing around and trying to get through it. But, you spend your time doing trials, and typically you do about 5 or 6 misdemeanor trials before you're even ready to be transferred to the next training stage, which basically is DUI, and you go to Metro for that. And it's about a 4-month training at Metro. And there's a sort of an unwritten requirement that you need to do at least one DUI trial before you move on to your branch assignment. Some people get to do it, some people don't, but there's also an extensive DUI training there too. You get trained on the machines and other things for DUI cases, so you can be ready for those types of cases. Then you go to branch, and you have a large caseload. Uh, in my experience in Lancaster, we had 4 misdemeanor pretrial courts, and then we had the arraignment, the custody arraignment court for misdemeanors and for felonies. When you're assigned to the pretrial court, you handle your own out of custody arraignments. You handle everything basically when you're there. Motions, um, uh, post conviction matters, trials. When you're in a trial, you do your trial right after you're done finishing up your calendar, or in between you're finishing up your calendar. So it's a pretty busy way to go through your day. But sometimes we have assistance from other public defenders. If you're unable to, for some reason, to complete your calendar, you're able to get others to come in and help you. So there is a teamwork where others are available to assist if it's necessary.
awesome. Now I have a question for you. A lot of people, the young lawyers, they go to the public defender's office. Some go to the district attorney's office to get experience. They're there for 2, 3 years, and then they leave and they go into private practice. And then you have other people like you who stay there and they make it a career. I want to ask you, what made you decide that I want to be a public defender in the long term? I want to do what I'm doing now, and I don't want to go into private practice.
Well, I mean, it's a different type of work, because as a public defender, I can go to trial and I don't have to worry about being paid by a client, because trials are expensive. I'm assuming, I'm not having worked as a private attorney, I think it's expensive to go to trial for a private lawyer. So for a public defender, it's cost is not an issue. We have a large office with all kinds of resources. We have a large group of investigators, and I'm talking about both public defender and alternate public defender, because now I work for the alternate public defender's office. And we have investigators, we have social workers, we have paralegals, we have our secretaries, uh, and we have other lawyers that you can always go to if you need assistance. So there's a camaraderie there. There's a big pool of resources there that it's easy to rely on. Um, and so I wanted to do this type of a work. I wanted to be able to go to trial if it needs to, if a case needs to go to trial. Obviously, if you can resolve it uh, and not worry about a client getting a long-term sentence, you want to do that. Whatever's best for the client, obviously that's what you want to do. But from my experience, what I see with some private lawyers is they're able only to assist the client all the way up to preliminary hearing in most cases. because it's very expensive for individuals to pay a lawyer to represent them all the way through trial. And I didn't want to just do preliminary hearings. I wanted to be able to help my clients all the way through with their cases. And also, we do a lot of things that some private attorneys, I don't know if they consider in doing, which is, getting our clients into programs. We have ODR now that we're able to assist our clients. And the way I look at doing my work, it's not just a kind of like a criminal defense type of a thing, but there's also a kind of a social work aspect to it also. It's long-term help that I'm thinking of when I'm trying to help my clients. I'm thinking about them not coming back anymore, them going out into society and being able to have a fruitful life. Going in and out of jail is not the type of life that I would want for myself or anybody else that I know. So
Right.
as a public defender, you're able to do that. In a private practice, I don't know if you can, I don't think it would be good for your pocket to not have clients back. You want to have business. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to pay yourself or your bills.
Right. Well, that last point, I don't really agree with you, but this is the reason I wanted to have you on, because a lot of people, when I say people, I mean the general public, don't realize how knowledgeable, how trained, and how well public defenders practice law. And I wanted you to be here to explain that. And I agree with you. Being in the public defender's office, you don't have to worry about running a business, meaning having a private practice. You get to purely practice law. And sometimes I'm envious of you because you get to practice law while I have to also run a business at the same time, and nobody's there to train you on that. So um, I have great respect for public defenders and alternate public defenders. Now, I want to ask you, what is the difference between a public defender and an alternate public defender, and why do these two organizations exist separate of each other?
There's really not much of a difference. We're all public defenders. The reason why we have a public defender and an alternate public defender is for conflicts. The public defender's office can only represent one person at a time in a case. If there are two defendants charged in one case, they can't represent both of them, so they have to declare a conflict on one, and we represent the other individual. And sometimes, even if one person is charged with a crime, witnesses can be also clients of the public defender's office, and so they have to declare a conflict on that case, because you can't have a client of yours testifying against another client of yours, because it creates a conflict. It puts you in a position where you're cross-examining one of your clients for to defend another client. So the reason why alternate public defender's office exists is for conflict situations. And then we also have the bar panel, as I'm sure you're well aware of, as you're part of it, for conflicts, because we also have in the alternate public defender's office, we have conflicts too, and we have to declare a conflict on a case so that the client can be properly represented. The one difference between the public defender's office and the alternate public defender's office is we don't have, alternate public defender's office doesn't have what's called a DPD-1 or an APD-1, which is someone just coming out of law school and applying for a job with the public defender's office. If for me, if I wanted to, I could have just applied with the public defender's office right out of law school, because they have that process where you can do that. They can hire people who just graduated law school, passed the bar, and don't have any experience. With the alternate public defender's office, we can only hire public defender twos. And that requires at least 1 year of public defender level job experience. And so, we have a lot of felony cases. The way we are set up is that most of our attorneys handle felony matters as opposed to misdemeanor matters. The public defender's office has more lawyers who can handle misdemeanors. So we have people coming in with experience, initially starting at misdemeanors, and it doesn't matter if you come in with a felony experience. Everybody comes in as a misdemeanor lawyer, again, downtown LA. They have to go through a short training process, and it's mostly training on office policy and how things work here in LA County, because we also hire people who come from different counties, people who work for other county public defender's offices. But that's pretty much the difference. We also do in the alternate public defender's office witness representation. So if there's a witness and for whatever reason they need assistance for a lawyer, we get appointed to represent them. Unless it's a conflict, then somebody from the bar panel will do it. But we also do that. I never did that with the public defender's office, but I've done that here with the alternate public defender's office.
That's actually a great explanation. It explains it well. I didn't know some of the things. I didn't know that you can't come out of law school and be part of the alternate public defender's office, but now I know. So, William, you've been practicing for a while. How long have you been a public defender or alternate public defender? It's been about 16 years, I believe.
Let's see. It's been about 15 and a half years.
15 and a half years. So in your 15 and a half years, providing legal services to the public, you must have a lot of different stories. Is there a particular one that makes you proud of being a public defender? Something that you want to share with the audience?
Ooh, I don't know if I can think of anything specifically with that kind of
put you on the spot, huh? Okay. so tell us, while you're thinking of an example, tell us, what is your favorite part of being part of this organization that you're a part of, part of the public defender fraternity? What's your favorite part about it?
Well, being able to help people. A lot of our clients come from backgrounds, and I'm not talking about not necessarily just race or sex or whatever, but economic race is also part of it. Familial, people come from different kinds of families, and it's usually people who've had hard lives. I'm sure you've heard the saying that says, hurt people hurt people. And a lot of our clients are in a bad position in life, and they make bad decisions. And I'm not saying there are no people who intentionally do bad things, but most of our clients are mentally ill, and the things that they do, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, they don't have really the control that we have to stop doing things when we know that this is bad. I shouldn't be doing this because there are going to be negative consequences, and some of them just kind of make bad decisions and end up in a situation where they need help. And it requires a lot of compassion on our part. Sometimes it's difficult because we do handle a lot of difficult cases, things that people have done that it's kind of, hard to excuse, but you understand that, you got to be there to help this person. And sometimes innocent individuals get accused of things, and those are the hardest cases. Sometimes people ask me, how can you sleep at night when you defend a guilty person? And I'm like, most of the time the system works in that situation. The guilty person does not walk free. It's the innocent person that keeps me up at nights, because the system sometimes doesn't work for those people, and it's hard to see an innocent person get convicted of something that they didn't do. And some of these consequences are lifelong. They end up in prison for the rest of their lives, and those are the hardest ones. But I just remembered a story that made me proud to be a public defender. So I was in juvenile for about 2.5 years up in Lancaster, and I grew up in Armenia as a kid. I was 12 years old when my family immigrated to the United States. And I don't remember there being any kind of a juvenile system in Armenia. The juvenile system was your parents, slapping you in the face and telling you not to ever do it again. And you were just like, all right, I'm not doing this, But there was a criminal justice system for kids. So it was kind of difficult for me to be, and juvenile is probably, and you can talk to anyone who's done juvenile. It's emotionally the hardest part of this job is representing children who are being treated like adults. Kids who can't think like adults are being treated like adults. And it's, I think, ridiculous that juvenile system, thankfully is being changed, and there's a lot more diversion than punishment. But there was punishment, and these are kids who are already punished. I had one client who was a female client. She was, I think, about 16 years old, and she had been in both the dependency system and the delinquency system for most of her life. She had been growing up in the foster care system, and had gone through hell as a kid. She was 16 years old, and she had gone through so much more than I could even imagine. And all kinds of punishment in her life. And we're sitting in front of this judge, and he wants to send her to camp again, for whatever reason. I can't remember the specific reason, but he wants to send her to camp. And for me, camp is basically prison for the kids. There's nothing that's helpful for them to go in there. So I'm kind of begging this judge already. I'm like, look, man, this kid has been punished her entire life. You've seen all the reports. You can see all the hell she's gone through. Nobody's ever given her a chance to change. We don't need to punish her anymore. We need to kind of embrace her, give her a hug, tell her that she's a great person, show her some love and care, not punishment, because it's not working. We keep sending her out there into camp. She keeps coming back with more violations and just keeps continuing this process. So I convinced him to put her in a group home and just allow her to kind of heal, because she's never had the opportunity to heal. And periodically we had progress reports with her coming back and just kind of seeing how she's doing while she's in this group home. And I am happy to say, and this isn't, I'm not taking any credit for this. This is all her. She was given the opportunity to heal, and the system, at least in this instance, worked for her. After I would say about a year and a half, she came back for her final progress report. She had been able to graduate from high school. She was turning 18 now, so she was going into a different kind of housing where she's going to be able to live on her own. It's still within the group home system, but she's moving forward and becoming an independent adult, being able to take care of herself, but she will still have the support that she needs from the group home, therapy, whatever she needs. And her whole demeanor had changed too. When she was in court that last time, she was very aggressive towards the judge. It was just, even with me sometimes, I would be talking to her and I'm trying to explain to her, and it would just kind of like, a hurt animal trying to kind of bite back and attack and keep people from attacking her. That's how her demeanor had been in court for a long time. And every time she came back for progress while she was in the group home, she started getting better and better and better. And that last time that she was there before she was moving into her new housing, she was almost a different person, and she was calmer, not as aggressive towards either the judge or myself. She was happier. She was hopeful that her future was going to be better. And so that made me feel good about, being there and kind of helping her get through all of this, horrendous things that had been happening to her as a kid. And she was able to move on into a better adulthood, and hopefully, and I unfortunately, I haven't seen her since she moved on to that housing, and since I left juvenile delinquency practice in Lancaster. But I am hopeful that at least she was able to use whatever help she got to move forward into a more positive life as an adult.
It's a great story. That's a great story, and I could see the passion in your eyes when you were telling that story. And that's the exact reason that I wanted to have you on this episode to help the general public understand that the hard work and the public defenders and the alternate public defenders office do, not just in this county or this state, but across the country. I think you guys don't get the credit you deserve, and my goal is to help everybody um, understand how hard you guys work. You guys are some of the hardest working lawyers I've met throughout my career, and my hat's off to you and all your colleagues. William, it was a pleasure having you on. Um, I know that you're a very busy man, so it was an honor to have you on. And anything else you'd like to say in parting?
Well, I want to thank you for doing this. I think it's important for the public, the general public, to know the type of work that public defenders do. It's not a glorious job. We don't get praise in national news or whatever, but that's not why we do it. It's we're all very passionate about justice. We're passionate about taking care of our clients and helping people. And I want the public to know that we're not just dump trucks, as some people call us, or public pretenders, as some people call us. We are real lawyers, and we work hard for our clients. We want to take care of our clients. Sometimes the facts are what they are, and it's unfortunate, but we try our best, and we really, all we care about is helping our clients maneuver through this system, and hopefully never come back again, and go out there in society and have productive lives, take care of themselves and their families, and don't want to see them in that kind of a position again. So I appreciate you doing this. If I'm happy I was able to help out, and I hope that this was a positive thing for everyone. And we're always happy to have more people apply with either public defender office or both public defender offices, because we can always use great passionate individuals out there who want to help the people who are hit the hardest with the world, the way the world is. So thank you for having me on your show.
It was my pleasure, and thank you for all the hard work you've done. Have a good day.
Thanks, Arash. Take care. Bye bye.